on the shark bite, show me on your hands, which numbers you want to see, do go over, have questions about. I'm seeing a lot of 2s and 3s. If you had something other than a 2 and a 3, keep your hand raised. Just so I can see. They were like equal of this. So we'll do 2 and 3, and then of the remaining, we can do 5. Right, for number 2, we had to translate, but then we also had to solve. So translating, the quotient of everything after this is going to be dividing. A number more than we're going to be adding in there as well. And what we're dividing by is 3. So a number more than 1 and 3 should look something like this. Is 5 should equal 5. So that's the translating part. And then for the solving part, we had to get rid of 3, so multiply on both sides. And then subtract 1 on both sides. So if we were to put 14 back in, 14 plus 1 is 15. 15 divided by 3 is 5, so that works. Questions on that one? That was, so I've done different shark bites over the years, and I keep forgetting to change it, so that was a mistake. Right, for number 3, we need to evaluate negative in parentheses, negative 12, outside of the parentheses squared, minus 3, then in parentheses, negative 5 over 6. And then times negative 12. And then make sure you're showing each step. So this would have given us negative 144. You could have multiplied these all at the same time, multiplied 2, and then the other one, how you do that is up to you. So if I'm multiplying these 2 first, this would be a positive 15 over 6, which simplifies to 5 halves. If I'm multiplying these 2, 5 times negative 12 would be negative 30, negative 60, sorry, over 2 would be negative 30. To simplify, to get negative 174. Questions on that one? And then number 5 on the back. This quote was to send a package to a friend in Spain. I don't know anyone in Spain, just so we're all clear. It costs $3 for the packaging and 20 cents for each ounce. If she paid $15.60, how heavy is the package? So you should be starting off with some variable, defining it. Sure. Number of ounces, weight of the package, either or. And then setting up your equation. We know it equals 1560. Since that is our total, we are adding 3 and 20, and that is where our variable goes. And then solving. So we should get 63 ounces. Cross out the graph, write it around it. Right. To get that full point, you need all of these things, the definition, the equation, the work, and the answer. Question? questions on that one. Make sure your name is on your answer sheet and then pass it up. So, Dave, can you grab the one from behind you?
Okay. I have first, if that's okay.
Patrick, can you grab the ones from behind you? Max, can you grab the ones from behind you? And Carrie, can you grab the ones from behind you? So I will get these graded to give back to you. Remember that these are informative grades. But each time you get a shark bite, it's like a mini SOL to see how you would do based on the knowledge you have right now.
What's an SOL like?
Be more specific.
I've never taken an SOL. Is it just like an ordinary test?
It's on a computer. You test it on a computer. It's like 40 to 60 questions. That could be an exaggeration.
Are we going to take SSL this test?
When you have access to Desmos, and then you just take it through. Yes. And then English and Louise, listen to this first, and then I'll let you go. Okay, look at your course calendar. There are a couple things we need to talk about, fix, change, all of these. So, first, when I made this calendar, I had to redo it because I forgot about PSATs, but then I also forgot that I will still see you guys. I won't see third period. So, all of these, except today's, all of these dates you have to change. So on Friday the 20th, change that to Wednesday the 18th, and then so on and so forth. So the next one will be Friday the 20th, Tuesday the 24th, Thursday the 26th, Monday the 30th, Wednesday the 1st, so on and so forth. So all of these dates are changed for you. I have to change them in Canvas as well because I literally just had this revelation this morning. So that means your quiz date will be the 30th. Your test date will be the 1st. Regardless of when they were going to be. They're going to be towards the end of the quarter. You wouldn't have enough time to retest. So all of this is going to be on quarter 2. All of the Delta Maths, all of the quizzes, all of the tests will be on quarter 2. So when I send out announcements or messages saying to check your grades, these will all be in quarter 2. So keep that in mind. What that also means is whatever your grade is right now will be the grade that gets printed on the report card unless you retake between now and then. So you have until the 1st, November 1st, to do any retake work. After November 1st, if you still want to retake but haven't done the retake work, you will not be able to. You have until November 2nd to retake. But November 1st, your retake work has to be completed. If your retake work is not completed on the 1st, you will not retake on the 2nd. But if it is, you can. Those are after school things. Because your flex day wouldn't be until, well, yours would be that Friday. So it would fall within that, but no retakes would happen for quarter 1. Right. Questions on any of that? Also take note of the Delta Math. All of them are due next Friday, due to homecoming this week. That does not mean you should wait until next Friday to do all 5. They will pile up, and you need to be practicing. So when you have time, you should be working on them throughout the unit. These are your tests. Questions on anything quarter, end of the quarter wise? Okay. The little green book you have is for you to use whenever you so choose. There are word problems on there, so if you're retaking the last unit tests, you can use that to practice. There's stuff from this unit, next unit, and I want to say the unit after that. So it is good practice, especially if you're looking for something else to help you practice. Use that. And then everyone has notes. So go ahead and put those in front. We are going to be talking about slope. Many of you have heard of or talked about slope in 8th grade, but we have to talk about it again with some more advanced concepts. So I'm going to have you guys fill out these notes, and I'll talk through them as we do that. So slope, or a rate of change, a ratio that shows how one variable changes with respect to another. On a linear graph, this is called the slope of a line. So when you hear slope and rate of change, those words are interchangeable. Slope is written as a ratio of the vertical change, the rise, to the horizontal change, the run, between any 2 points on a line. This remains constant for any 2 points on the same line. That means between point A and point B, the slope is the same as point B and point C, and so on and so forth. Slope is written as a fraction in simplest form, and the variable for slope is m. Once you have this written down, I'm going to slide this down a little bit further, but draw in these xy axes and those blank spaces. And write those 4 words at the bottom. Positive, negative, 0, undefined. As you are finishing that, I'm going to draw in these graphs, and I want you to also draw them in to the best of your ability. You don't have to match mine exactly. So positive is going to look something like this. Make sure you have arrows drawn at the end. Negative is going to be the opposite. 0 is going to be a straight line across. And undefined is going to be a straight vertical line up and down. Even though mine are a little crooked. And then we're going to talk about directions to help you remember these. So for positive, also write it down. M equals rise over run. The rise are your y's. I didn't mean to run that. The run is your x's, are your x's, whatever. So a good way to think about that, I think about when I get up in the morning, I sit up before I get out of bed, so I rise before I run. So if I'm thinking for my positive slope, if I'm looking at this left to right, my rise, I'm going up, and my run, I'm going to the right. Up and right are both positive directions, so if I have a positive over a positive, I'll get a positive. But I can also look at it the other way. So if I'm looking at it right to left, my rise in this case would be going down and to the left. Down and left are negative directions, but a negative over a negative is still a positive, so that works. Negative is opposite. With my negative, my rise, I'm going down first and to the right. So I have some negative over a positive, which would end up a negative. I can also think about it the other way. I could go up and left, and that would still give me a negative. With 0, are we going up and down at all? No. So I'm not going up or down at all, but I am going left and right, but 0 divided by anything is 0. So it's going to be 0 regardless. Undefined is the opposite. I am going up and down, but I'm not moving left and right. In your calculator, pick a number, your favorite number, whatever number, divide it by 0. What happens? You get an error. We cannot divide by 0. So this is undefined. Now sometimes you get an error by accident, so be careful. But when you get an error with slope, it's undefined. Okay. Write these letters down, and then we'll do more of that when we get back to lunch. Down here, leave space in between HOY, VUX. Yes.
What about Mr. Slope guy?
I don't know what that means.
Is it the face of the slope?
If that helps you remember it, go for it. Is it a U? Yes, VUX. Alright, we'll talk about what that means when we come back. Okay. Let's continue this so that you know what this means. Toy box is for horizontal lines, have 0 slope, and are y equals. And then the opposite is true for the box part. Vertical lines have undefined slope and is x equals. So anytime you have a horizontal or vertical line, or you're given that or something related, you should be thinking of that. Did you guys put your phone back? So we're going to use all the knowledge that we just gained to find the slope of these 4. So to find the slope of a graph, you need to find 2 ordered pairs that either you can see or that fall on the grid lines exactly. So give me one of them, one of the ordered pairs that you see for number 1.
-2, -2.
-2, -2, that's one of them. Give me another one. -1, 0. It's like, so this is the point, but this doesn't quite go through that. Oh, so be careful with that. 2, 7. 2, not 7, but 5. Okay. So your ordered pairs is opposite from your slope because slope is y's over x's. Ordered pairs is xy. Keep that in mind. You go straight. Then you have a choice of how you want to read this. Let's say we're starting at this one. We're going to go straight up. You can count how many units this is up. 7. And then how many units over to the right. So you don't have to write it as I'm about to, but if it helps you do that. So if I'm going up 7 and to the right 4, these are both positive, so that would give me a positive 7 fourths. So I mentioned you have a choice. You could have did exactly what we just did. You could have also do this. So let's say you start at this point. I can't go up, but I can go down. And I'd be going down 7 and to the left 4. That would give me a -7 over a -4, which would be the same thing. So it doesn't matter which point you start at. as long as you are counting accurately, putting the right negative or positive with whichever. Questions on that one? Give me 2 ordered pairs for number 2. That is 1. Kate, you were going to say what?
Oh, sorry, I forgot the points, not the answer.
Yes.
-5, -5.
-5, -5. There are others. -5, +5, yes. There are others, but if these are the ones you found, that's fine. So, if I'm starting at this point, the highest point, and I'm going down, how many units?
Sorry.
3. And to the right, how many units? 9. So this would give me a -3/9, but that can be simplified to
1/2.
1/3, -1/3. That means every time I go down 1 to the right 3, there should be another point. I'm starting from the top. If I go down 1 to the right 3, down 1 to the right 3, there are many points along this line. There would be even more if the graph extended off the page. So it doesn't matter if you had started at these points, went backwards, started at any of those, you should have gotten the same thing. If you go backwards, so then you're going up and left, yes, the negative would end up in the denominator, but your final answer, the negative needs to be in the numerator or out front. Alright, questions on that? Alright, give me 2 order pairs for number 3.
0, 1.
0, -1, but sure.
Yeah.
And one more.
0, 3.
So would 0, 3 be a point? So 0, -1 is not one of the given points, sure, but it does fall on this line.
Oh, wait, we're supposed to be looking at the arrows. Never mind, I was looking at the wrong thingy.
1, -1.
It really doesn't matter which points you choose on this, because you're going to end up with the same thing. Because I'm not moving up and down at all, but depending on how I'm doing this, counting right, left, doesn't matter whether we get 1 or -1, this is always going to be 0. So you could do the counting, but you don't need to because of this. Because this is a horizontal line, the slope will always be 0. So what would the slope of number 4 be? Not 0, it's not horizontal, it's undefined because it's vertical. You can put U and D, you can spell out undefined, either or. Make sure you have M equals. Questions on how we find the slope from a graph? Go on to the next page. Yours are numbered different than mine, but the questions are the same. Find any you want to see, do, go over, have questions about. If none, I want you to try and see how many of these you can do in the time frame I'm about to give you. I'm going to give you 5 to 8 minutes to work through as many of these as possible. Make sure you are simplifying. Make sure you're putting M equals. Right now, you can check with the people around you, not move around. Raise your hand when you finish, and I'll check them.
Hold on 1 second.
You wanted me to check, I'm sorry. Did we have any questions that we wanted to go over or double check on any of these?
Number 13.
13. the slope on this one, depending on how you were counting, you would have went down 5 and to the right 1. Which would have given you a negative 5 over 1 or this negative 5. So my 15 is your number 13. Any others?
16.
16. Your 16 is my 18. So if you chose these 2 points, that's fine. There were other points that you could have looked at. But if you did it from this point to this point, that would be down 4. And then right 4. Which would simplify to be negative 1. So either way, whether you use the points in between or the endpoints, would have given you that. Okay. Other questions? Go on to the next page. Make sure you have this formula written down at the top. M equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Right. You need to remember this formula, but if you start to switch things around, some things are okay, and I'm going to explain what those things are. So let's say you forget, is it the second one and the first one first? That it doesn't matter. So if you put the first one first, y1 instead of y2, as long as you switch these so that whatever number lines up, first with first, second with second, wherever it is, it doesn't matter where you put them.
So the same numbers just have to go on top of each other?
Correct. If you only switch one set of them, you're going to end up with a negative instead of a positive, or vice versa. So make sure you switch both. What cannot be switched are these. X's cannot go in the numerator at all. Y's have to go in the numerator, and they both have to be Y's. Right? If it helps you, I do this to help me remember. So your ordered pairs are XY. So I label these X1, Y1, X2, Y2. So if it helps you do it, if you can do this without that, great. Okay. Then we're going to use the formula to put all of those numbers in. 3 minus 1 over 4 minus 1. And then subtract. So 3 minus 1 would give us 2, and then 3. If we could simplify at all, we would, but that would be our slope. Every time I go up 2 to the right 3, I would end up at another slope point. Okay. Questions on that before we do another? Let's try number 2. Again, I'm going to label them x1, y1, x2, y2. We are always subtracting no matter what. So this is going to be negative 2 minus 4 over 10 minus a negative 2. Always subtracting no matter what. Now, you could change that to a plus, but I wouldn't start putting in pluses in your formula in general because you'll get the wrong answer. So negative 2 minus 4 would give us negative 6, and then 10 minus a negative 2, 12. And then can this be simplified? Yes, to what? Negative 1. To 12. So anytime you have a negative and a minus, they come together to make a plus. Okay. I knew that. Alright, we're going to skip 3 and 4 and move on to 5. So same process, I'm going to label x1, y1, x2, y2. And then we'll have 9 minus 9 over 3 minus 5. 9 minus 9 would give us 0. Doesn't matter what we get in the denominator because this is supposed to be 0. So it's just 0. equals m, or m equals, you would still have to do the work for this. But if you notice that your y values are the same, that would help you kind of remember that this is going to be a zero slope. Right, 6 will be similar. We have 5 minus 8 over negative 7 minus negative 7. So what would we get here? 0 in the denominator, which will give us undivided. Anything over 0 is undefined. Questions on that one? Just like 5, here the x's are similar, or the same, and that will tell you this is going to be undefined. Here.
So in number 2, we did 10 minus negative 2, and we got 12. But this one is negative 7 minus 7.
Yes. So if I have negative 7, and I added 7, what would you do? Oh, sorry. It's okay. I got it mixed up. Okay. Do we have questions in general on how we find slope from 2 points using the formula? Because we're about to take it up a notch. Because now we're going to do fractions. You may want to grab another sheet of paper, / turn your paper sideways and work on this part. You're going to need space.
Well, it's that one.
Could be that.
But we would show all of it.
I don't know if this is nice. I think we should it's like go around in a circle and talk about it.
So the process is going to be the same. So I'm going to fill it in. Actually, I'm going to do this on separate thing. So it's still going to be our y2, so 3/4, minus our y1, 2/5, all over x2, 1/3, minus our x1, 2/3. Yes.
Does it just matter the where you put it in, like if you do y1 first?
As long as you switch them both. So if you put y1 here, x1 also has to go here. Otherwise, you're going to end up with a negative when it should have been positive, or vice versa. Okay? If you have common denominators, you can go ahead and subtract. But if you do not, you have to get common denominators. Okay. So I said that backwards. So these ones, I would need to get common denominators. So think of something 4 and 5 both go into and 20. So to make this 20, I have to multiply by 5. What I do to one piece of the fraction, I have to do to the other. So we're going to multiply these both by 5 and these both by 4. I'm going to hold off on subtracting until the next part, but if you want to subtract, you can also do that. So now everything has common denominators. Now we can subtract just the numerators to get what two new fractions? If I subtracted these two, what would we get? 7 20ths over negative 1/3. So it is more simplified. It's more simplified, but we would not leave our answer like this. Right now we have a fraction within a fraction. We don't want that. So before, we were talking about simplifying, and we had to divide by a fraction. I said you could also multiply by the reciprocal. That's what we're going to do here. Take the denominator, flip it, and multiply in the denominator and the numerator. So that the denominator completely cancels, and you're left with what as the final fraction? So multiply.
Negative 21 times.
Negative 1 over 20. So that would be our final slope. So I'm going to show you how to do this part in the calculator. Everything else we have to show by hand. But this part you can do in the calculator or do by hand, up here. But you have to do exactly as I do on the calculator. So clear off your calculators. And then we're going to go into alpha y equals. And then you're going to do it again. Alpha y equals. And then you're going to go all the way to the bottom and do it again. If you did not do exactly what I just did, this bar in the middle where it's supposed to be longer will be somewhere else and it will not divide correctly. So then I could put in 7 over 20, negative 1/3, and it would simplify to negative 21/20. So you can use the calculator to do this part, but you have to put it in correctly. If you do not, you will not get the right answer. So you didn't do it correctly. Alpha y equals, do it again, go all the way to the bottom, and do it again. So you should be typing in alpha y equals 3 times. You did not do that, you did not do that correctly. Questions on that process, calculator, anything like that? If you have friends in other algebra classes, they are not doing this. This is an advanced topic. Let's do one more. Number 9. So now we have mixed numbers that we have to change to improper fractions before we do everything we just did. So if you have forgotten how to do that, I will remind you. Take the number out front and multiply it to the denominator. Add that number to the numerator. So 6 plus 2 would give you 8. Put that number over the denominator. And then we're going to do the same thing for the other one. So multiply 4 and 2. Add the 1. Put that all over 2. Yes. And symbol. But I can't actually do the and symbol, so that's my and symbol. If you forget or brain fart, you just don't remember how to put that as an improper fraction, you could do this part in the calculator. So if you go into alpha y equals, but instead of the first one, you go into the second one, you can put in mixed numbers. And then hit enter, and it will change it to an improper fraction for you. That's amazing. Alright, now the rest of the work is the same. Label x1, y1, x2, y2. You have 9 halves minus 1 over 3 minus 8/3. Still have to get common denominators. All whole numbers are really fractions with invisible ones underneath. So in the numerator, I'm going to multiply these by 2, and the denominator, multiply these by 3. And get new fractions. We have 9 halves minus 2 over 2, all over 9/3 minus 8 over 3. Now that we have common denominators, we could subtract what would those two new fractions become. simplify 9/2 minus 2 over 2, what would we get? 7 over 2. Alright, and then you can do this part in the calculator or by hand. Take the denominator, flip it, multiply it to both the numerator and denominator, so that our new fraction is 21 halves. 21 over 2. If I had a graph big enough, I could go up 21 and to the right 2, or down 21 to the left 2, and I would end at actual points on the graph, but a lot of the points would be decimals. Do you have any questions on that in general at all in the process, the answer?
Does that matter which side you put the name on?
I want you guys to try number 8 and 10. Finish those two, raise your hand, and I will come check them. And then after I give you some time to work through those, we'll come back, talk about the answers, and then I'll have you practice for the last. I'm going to give you the answers to 8 and 10. It's okay if you didn't finish those.
What grade?
So those are the answers. 8 was -6/5. 10 is 11/4.
Whoa. What?
Now, do we have questions on either of those?
How do we, how did you say 5 is 66 over 24?
By 6.
That's not what I said. Try again.
Ah, I see.
Were there questions about 8 and 10? Did we want to see the word for those? For 10.
So can we do like the denominator and the numerator by different things to get it simplified? Like for the 66 could be like divided it by 11 and got 6 and then divided the numerator by different.
You have to divide them.
So it has to be common.
Divide them both by 6. Divide them both by 6.
Okay.
Okay. So for number 10, this would have been 3 over 2. This would have been 3 and 49/8. So we would have had 49/8 minus 2 all over 3 minus 3/2. And then get common denominators. So 49/8 minus 16 over 8. 6 over 2 minus 3/2. Then simplify, so 33/8 over 3/2. And then if you did this in the calculator, this should have worked. So those would have canceled. That becomes 4, that becomes 11, so 11/4. Other questions? Alright. In 10 less than that minutes, I'm going to let you grab your phone, but not right now. So for the rest of this 10-ish minutes, I want you working on one of these things. So you have the delta math on what we talked about with slope that you could be working on, so it's not piled up for next Friday. There is additional practice up here on finding slope from a graph on one side and 2 points on the other. The 2 points does not have fractions. Or in your notes on the very back page, there are 3 problems with fractions. Work on one of those things. You can move around, work together. If you have questions, raise your hand, I'll be around.